Two guys in their early 50s with one dream: to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Andy Walker, here we are. I'm fresh out of the car, back from Tamworth in the what would we say, the New England region of New South Wales. Beautiful part of the world. And,
would you really ever call yourself fresh out of a several hour drive?
It was just under 4 hours.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if you can be fresh when you just jump out of a car 4 hours.
Let's not kid ourselves. Fresh is not the word.
Yeah. I mean, pretty tired. Yeah. I understand that.
Yeah. Andy Walker, I am stale out of the car.
That's closer to it.
Yes. But rather exciting. It was the playing of the New South Wales Mid-Amateur Championships at the rolling fairways of Tamworth Golf Club and Longyard Golf Clubs in Tamworth, in New England region of New South Wales. And I've got to say, if you were going to put on an event at two golf courses in the same city, you would do well to come up with two more different golf courses than Tamworth and Longyard.
Because Longyard is a Greg Norman designed golf course.
It is a Greg Norman designed course, yes.
Yeah, which has its own unique characteristics. And Tamworth, from what I gather, is just a good country golf course.
It's a country track. It's a country track. A lot like Dubbo, a lot like Parks that we played the country championships on. Yeah. Some pretty strong similarities to those courses, like a lot of big eucalypts and Kikuyu fairways and very, very grainy greens.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Andy Walker. Yeah. So quite a lot of grain on the greens. Not sure the exact type of grass that they were using there, but they had a strong grain. Versus Longyard, and as a Norman design course, Longyard is a links style course, sort of a resort style setup.
Cooch fairways, bent greens.
Cooch fairways, bent greens, big and very undulating greens. So a lot of breaks, a lot of big breaks, but then also a lot of subtle breaks around where the pins are placed, but very large greens for the main. A lot of fairway bunkering, a lot of hidden hazards.
The Shark loves a fairway bunker.
Loves a fairway bunker, and everything between, say, 220 to 250 off the tee. So perfect.
Yeah, I did spend a bit of time at Stonecutters Ridge in Sydney, and that's got a few fairway bunkers.
Yep. So it was all those sorts of things, a lot of blind tee shots and a lot of sort of disguised angles of where your landing zones are and whatnot, which was amazing because we played Longyard on day 2, played Tamworth on day 1, but when we played Longyard, we did not have a local member in our group. So
there
was
no local knowledge.
There was a lot of calculating and looking at shot scope and Google Earth and various maps to try and pick out landmarks of where a line off the tee might be. And happy to say that sometimes we got it right.
More often than not, or would you say less than 50%?
I think more often than not, we did get it right with what the lines off the tee were. Whether or not we hit those lines was a separate conversation, and certainly there were one or two times where there was another hazard that might not have necessarily been particularly visible on the overhead map. And as you are aware as well, like looking at these courses from above is a very two-dimensional exercise. And certainly doesn't tell you anything about runoff areas and undulations and elevation changes and some of those issues.
The benefits of a practice round.
Mate, we're going to get to that, don't you worry. So Pilgrims, it was an amazing couple of days. Great event. Hats off to Golf New South Wales for putting on another fantastic event, and absolutely brilliant to get involved in it and brilliant to get a start. I think, as we talked about, I wasn't necessarily eyeing off this at the start of the year as an opportunity, and was one of those things that we thought as we got closer that it might have been a chance. And I'm definitely glad that I went. A lot of lessons to be learned out of the experience, and we'll get to that in due course. But I thought, what we probably should do is have a bit of a look at what unfolded over
What
the couple of
occurred?
days.
Yeah. All right.
So just for everybody's benefit, essentially the field size was a maximum of 200, and that was open to men and women. And so depending on the applications and the entries into the event, would have been possibly 100 men, 100 women. As it transpired, the ladies' field was 14, which meant that you can do
the men's
maths.
was a bit larger than,
slightly larger. The men's field was 186.
Yep.
And I think they had something close to about 250 applications for entry.
Okay.
So
what handicap actually made it into?
So
the field?
it was a bit under 10. It was sort of in the high nines. The original cutoff was 12.4, and that came down by a couple of shots. What was interesting is there was 52 plus handicaps in the field, with the lowest handicap being at plus 5.5, which is just extraordinary golf.
Yeah.
And I think you had to get out beyond about 100 to get above a 2 handicap.
Yeah, wow.
So it
was
a
strong field.
It was a strong field. So, and I went in on handicap ranked 165th in the field. So to be perfectly honest, Andy Walker, my goal for the weekend was not necessarily expecting, certainly not expecting to win, but realistically not really expecting to make the cut, because the cut was going to be, less than half the full field. But what I wanted to do was to finish in a position higher than my 165th ranking position. Was ultimately the goal.
And just before we get to your scores, I'm just looking down the leaderboard here of the end results, and 9 under won. So that's good golf over 3 rounds in a mid-amateur championship. And to come in the top 10, you still had to shoot under par. So 1 under came a tie for 9th, and it looks like there were 5 guys at 1 under at a tie for 9th. So, I mean, to have to shoot under par to come top 10, that's good golf. That's very good golf.
I did not shoot under par. I did for 1 hole, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Did you shoot under your par?
No, I didn't. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. And in some respects, actually, it's an interesting point, because we had this conversation in a couple of the groups over the weekend, and this is not new news for anybody, but there's a very big difference between playing social golf versus Saturday or Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever day you want to play your local club competition.
Yep.
Versus playing club championships, versus playing external tournaments, and certainly versus playing state level tournaments. There's definitely a different feel, and as a result, a challenge around accessing your skill set.
Yeah.
You possess. And that's a point I do want to talk about at some point as we progress. But I think a way of going through this, let's have a chat about round 1, round 2, and then potentially unpack a few, kind of highlights, lowlights, lessons learned, some of those sorts of things. What are your thoughts, Andy Walker?
Yeah, let's do that.
So, pilgrims, transport yourselves to Tamworth in New South Wales. I did on day 1 when I arrived, actually in the afternoon before round 1, I arrived on the Saturday afternoon. I managed to get 9 holes in at Tamworth. I played the front 9 because I knew I was going to play the front 9 on the first day, which I did, and I'm actually really happy that I did that, because I learned a few things about the course in that. But before round 1, I got to the course, had a bit of a warm up, and then recorded a few thoughts as well.
G'day, pilgrims. It is about 25 minutes till tea time on day one. Got to the course, done a bit of a warm-up. Got to say, feeling pretty good. Beautiful day. You can feel the nervous tension in the air. There's a lot of nervous energy floating around from all the competitors. But what's interesting, I've been watching the first tee for a little while after arriving, and let's just say I don't feel like I'm out of my depth watching some of those tee shots off the first. So, yeah, haven't hit a shot yet in anger, but so far so good. Feeling confident. Hopefully, we have a good day. I'll check in with you later.
That was prior to tee off, Andy Walker. Thoughts?
So you're feeling pretty good.
I was feeling pretty nervous when I turned up. And I stood behind the first tee and watched a few of the first groups tee off. The first tee.
So it sounds like there are a few ordinary golf shots off the first.
Well, the first hole at Tamworth is a par 5.
Yep.
Runs away from the clubhouse, out of bounds up the left. Quite a long par 5, actually. It'd be very difficult. I don't think I would be able to reach it in 2, even if I absolutely brained 2 shots. Genuine 3-shotter for me. And I was standing behind the tee watching a few of the guys tee off, and I think I probably would have seen about, say, 10 or 15 tee shots. Not one of them hit the fairway.
Yeah, right. Any out of bounds?
No.
That's a bad start, isn't it? To a 36 hole or 54 hole tournament championship with a 36 hole cut, and you just hook your
Smoke one out of bounds.
Cut your first one out of bounds.
There's a lot of out of bounds in play at Tamworth.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
a lot. And I've got to say, if they ever did a risk assessment on that golf course, there's some significant questions to be asked about a couple of the holes. In particular, the 7th hole, the tee box pretty much points you at the road.
Right.
Long par 4.
Yeah.
And there's only some quite small trees that are guarding the fence line, and the fairway, the distance between the edge of the fairway and the out of bounds fence is probably about 6 or 7 meters.
Yeah, right.
So it is very, very much in play. Anyway, that was how I was feeling about life before we teed off. So teeing off at 10 a.m., go through the registration process, meet the guys. I was playing with a local member, so Paul from Tamworth, really nice guy. Another guy who you'll hear more about, Ross Johnson from Bonnie Doon Club down in Sydney.
Oh, yeah, yep.
A young Irishman who chosen to make his way in the world out in Australia.
Nice.
Shout out to Roscoe, good man. I actually played with Ross both days, and we just happened to be drawn together for the first 2 rounds. And then we had a member of Longyard join us at Tamworth. We really could have done with him on day 2 when we played Longyard. We only had him on day 1.
Yep.
So anyway, we got to the tee, and what was interesting is that they announce you on the tee, and
sort of like a open championship, or
do
they go through all like your tournament wins and stuff like that? No.
Winner of the A-grade medal at Dubbo in November of 2022. None of that. No, but they call you. They call you by name, but they call you in order. And I was first off in our group, which was fine. I don't mind. And what's funny is I knew there was a degree of heightened energy, shall we call it? Like not outright nerves, but like everything is unfamiliar. You turn up and it's different course, it's different setup. You have the opportunity to say hello to Emmanuel Averanis to register on your way into the championship and all those sorts of things. It's just a little bit different to normal. So everything's a bit different. So anyway, I'd played here the afternoon before, played the first, and on the first I teed off and I hit one up the right side of the fairway, nice little draw. Which I just sort of had that visually in my mind, and stepped up and just blocked the absolute bejesus out of it up the left side.
Oh, no.
And I was standing there on the tee, nervously looking at the out of bounds fence, which had dropped inside. It didn't go out, but I was deep in the trees and dead.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Dead. So anyway, the rest of the boys all teed off. None of them hit the fairway either, to be honest, which was, we talked about it afterwards. We were all kind of feeling the same feels. Got up, went to just punch out pretty much sideways, Andy Walker with an 8-iron, which I did, back in the stance, all that sort of stuff, and punch shot that we talked about. Just caught a branch and stayed inside the tree line, and I didn't have a shot up towards the green, which was disappointing. So I thought, my 4 hybrid that can cut quite nicely. So I thought I'll give that a go and cut that. And I lasered one absolutely straight into the right tree line. Had to punch out sideways. And bit
of army golf down the first.
Oh, and you're just going, oh man, don't be that guy.
Yep.
Had to punch out sideways, had about 55 meters to the green. So a nice little sand wedge in. Missed the green.
Oh no.
Left. And then fortunately hit a nice chip to a couple of feet and tapped in for an opening double.
So up and down for double.
Yeah.
On the first.
Great up and down for double.
Cheering.
Yeah. And it was a tough up and down too, because it was, kind of, the green, I missed the green left, and the green sloping pretty heavily back to front. So you're chipping across the slope. Anyway, but got up and down. So that was good. So took a few deep breaths.
Remember that was your loosener.
Yeah, remembered the breathing exercises. And also, to be honest, I was just thinking through, it was a double. It wasn't a triple. It wasn't a quad. It wasn't an absolute disaster. You can come back from a double in 2 days of stroke play.
You've got another 35 holes, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not disastrous.
And as I was saying to myself, there's going to be doubles.
Yeah.
Right. Throughout 2 days of stroke play, there's going to be doubles. So anyhow, we step up onto the second tee. And now I've just blocked one a mile left off the first. We step up on the second tee, and again, so the first tee goes up one boundary, the second tee turns right and goes down another boundary of the course. So there's out of bounds again all the way down the left-hand side.
Yeah.
The day before when I played a solo practice 9, I hit one out of bounds off this tee shot.
Oh, yeah, that's a good visual cue right there after you've just blocked one down the first.
So let's just say I aimed up the right side of the fairway on this one.
Surprisingly.
And I actually hit a really good drive. I hit exactly where I was aiming it. But because I was aiming up the right side of the fairway, it did catch just the edge of a branch of an overhanging branch of a tree on the edge of the fairway and kind of dropped down in the rough. But it was fine. I had a shot at the green. I was just a bit shorter than where I would have liked to have been. So I was probably, I think, about 145 to the pin, roughly. So took a 7-iron and stuck one to about 5 feet, Andy Walker.
Nice.
And drained the putt for bird.
That's a good comeback. To start off with a double and to dust yourself off and then make birdie down the second. That's good. That's good. That's a good comeback.
I was pretty happy with that for exactly that reason. And then also going, well, I'm 1 over after 2.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. I would have taken 2 bogeys, to be honest, and been 2 over after 2 would have been okay. But, the doubles shake you up a little bit. And it actually wasn't the fact that it was a double. It was the fact that I did not hit a good shot all hole until the chip.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
do you think that was nerves or do you think
100%?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it that the first tee shot, I did not complete my swing. It was out of the center of the club face, but I hadn't rotated. I hadn't released the club head. Everything was very steery.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was just a big high block. So absolutely that's nerves. It's definitely mental. So that was good. So we made birdie. From there, I pretty much got aboard the bogey train, Andy Walker, for the remains of the front 9.
Yeah, right.
Just bought a ticket, hopped on.
Couldn't get off?
Took a seat, sat down, watched the world go past out the window.
Was it enjoyable?
And rode the train. with the exception of the sixth hole, par four up the hill, which I hit a good drive, good approach, probably to about 6 or 7 feet. Burned the edge with a putt. Should have been a birdie, but it didn't drop. So we made par on that one. But other than that, it was the bogey train the whole way in. So went out in a plus 742.
Yep.
Which, I thought it was as bad a score as I was going to post with the way that I was hitting the ball. Because after the first hole, struggling a little bit with driver, and I'd pushed a few shots left. My miss tended to be left, which I think was, just the not completing the swing issue throughout a lot of that round. But I'd been grinding pretty hard and getting back into it. So,
so you felt like you were playing decently at least.
Yeah. I was happy with where things were at, pretty much, except for the simple fact that reading putts on these greens I did struggle with, because reading the break was one thing, but reading the grain was another. That was actually having just as much impact as the break. And we had this conversation with Paul in the group, who was the local member after the round, and he also didn't make a putt all day, to be perfectly honest. So it's not necessarily taking his advice on lines or anything, but he was always saying that reading the grain is just as important as reading the break at Tamworth, because it has, and it was one of those ones you could see, like the dark green, light green.
Yep.
Yeah, it was very prominent. So it was definitely having impact. And I did battle with that from a putting point of view, without a doubt. So anyway, we made the turn, made a solid par on 10, hit a good drive down the right side, hit a wedge. What was I? I was probably about 75 meters out, hit a wedge. Pin was on the left, so of course I hit it to the right side of the green, but pin high. But made a good 2-putt, so that was good. And then again, back on the train, got on the train pretty much the whole of the back nine, with the exception of the long par 3 13th, which was playing nearly 190 meters.
Yep.
So hit a good 4 hybrid onto the green and made a 2-putt. But other than that,
nice.
Other than that, it was on the train, except for 18, where I got off the bogey train. I just went back a couple of carriages and hopped onto the double bogey carriage to finish.
So you've opened with a double and closed with a double.
Yeah. Bracketed the round with 2 doubles. Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. So the back nine ended up being a plus 843 on the back for 85, which, because it's plus 70, was plus 15. So it was an interesting one to unpack, because I was pretty happy with the way I played on the hole.
Yep.
I'd got the driver going well. One of the comments that was made by one of the playing partners was, so many of my shots were almost.
Right. Yep.
They were almost close, or almost got the right bounce, or, the putts almost went in, and it was just, there was fine margins between, being a par or a bogey, or being a birdie or a par. It was the worst number that I could possibly have shot with the way that I played.
Yeah,
That's how I would describe it.
And was that like across all facets of your game, or was it pretty consistent, or did you feel as though there were parts of your game which were better? Like, it sounds like you drove the ball pretty well.
I drove the ball well.
So,
with the exception of 1 and 18, they were both big blocks.
Yep.
But everything else, it was pretty solid.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty solid. So I thought that was good. I'd been striking my irons better than I have been of late.
Yep.
Definitely. Hit a couple of really good chips, hit a couple of poor chips. So there's still that inconsistency floating around there. And then definitely putting. I just couldn't get them to drop, to be honest. And the problem was there was one early, which was on probably on like the 3rd or 4th hole, something like that I steamed, which I didn't think I'd hit too hard, but it went about 10 feet past.
Yeah, right. Yep. And so that just lost confidence in your speed control.
Totally got in my head, and then I was leaving a few short, and speed control was out the window. And I think that was a major issue. And then a couple of 5-6 footers that just, kind of didn't go in. There was one, I can't remember which hole it was, but there was one where I'd hit the putt and I was actually doing the Kevin Na to reach down and pull the ball out of the hole as it just turned at the hole and didn't drop. And those ones where you just kind of go, come on, like that's in.
Yeah.
And so just a few things like that just eroded the confidence a little bit. And once they just start not dropping, you're just not seeing them drop. And
so you were hitting the putts on the line that you wanted. You just A, speed control, and B, maybe a bit of green reading just wasn't there.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Well, I mean, I guess that's not technique then. That's just a bit of framework and a bit of touch that you need to work on. And I guess we come back to, the Macquarie Cup a couple of months back where you take your green reading out of it and you know what the line is, you can make the putt to actually get it to go in the hole.
Yeah.
So I think it comes back to that framework. And I know you're working on the tour read framework, and that's probably something that could do with some focus.
It absolutely can. And to be honest with you, that was my takeaway, because I was like, I just felt that I was hitting a lot of the time the putts I wanted to hit, speed control aside. But absolutely, it's a reading the green issue. And I wasn't beating myself up about it because I know that it's very early days on the tour read process. Yep. So,
did you use the tour read process or?
Yeah, I was trying. I was trying to, but the problem is I'm just not good enough at it at the moment, because a lot of it comes down to you've got to go through, like, you've got to do the hard yards of doing the training of how to visually see what the break is. And there's I think it's something like a 73 putt training process that you'd need to go through in the space of about 4 days to actually start to ingrain the
Was
ability.
It the calculations? Just couldn't get a calculation.
No, the calculations are fine. The calculations are fine because my maths is quite strong. It's just being able to really identify what's going to happen. And I think as well, like, that was a bit of a tough test, because you're looking at trying to judge not only the slope of the ground, but the grain and the grass and the impact that one's going to have over the other. And I should also mention as well, it was very, very wet. So we were playing lift, clean and place, which is good, but there was zero run out in any shot. So everything, like, you hit a drive and you literally, there was a couple of occasions where I plugged in the fairway off the tee. And so it's all well and good to get the ball in your hand and clean the ball and place it and get a beautiful lie, but there's zero compression on the ball when you're hitting off those sorts of fairways as well. And definitely around the greens, it becomes quite difficult, because chipping off that Christmas pudding type texture, it's difficult. There's no pushback from the ground onto the club to generate any spin or get any compression on your iron. So
well, I mean, there has been a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of rain in that area. I mean, the mid north coast, I know, up around Port Macquarie and Taree, obviously got absolutely smoked in that east coast low that hung around for quite a while. And there were significant amount of golf courses from, say, Coffs Harbour all the way down the coast that were closed and are still closed. To be honest with you, it's there's a lot of rain. So I'm actually a little bit surprised that you got on. I thought, at one stage there that they might maybe try and either postpone or reschedule or move the event. There was that much rain.
Well, to be honest, the guys at Tamworth were saying that the Thursday comp in the lead up was cancelled because the course was underwater.
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
So, and there were still areas in some of the lower areas where there was casual water lying around. There were puddles in certain areas, so it was very wet. But and I should say though, massive hats off to the ground staff, the groundkeepers at both clubs for presenting the courses as well as they did. They did an incredible job, and they really, they really did play well. There's nothing that you can do about the fact that you've had that much rain though.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, that makes it a little bit more difficult with your ball striking and consistency of ball striking, because it's one thing to have the fairways and if you go off the fairways to have light rough and then in the trees, but when you put water in there as well, and especially around the fairways, and water starts getting into grooves, and it's like playing early in the morning when you've got layer of dew on the ground. It just adds an element of inconsistency, I guess, into the spin that you're getting off your ball. So that definitely makes it a little bit more difficult to be able to judge. And you're talking about your approach play and your irons, that there was a lot of shots that were
Yeah,
just
yeah,
missed, and
yeah.
that may have had something to do with the fact that it was so wet, and there you weren't getting, or you were getting inconsistent spin on the ball. That potentially could have been one of the reasons why that was happening.
think I think in reality it probably had more of an impact in chipping and pitching than it
Yep.
did in full shots. I think the difference in the full shots is that distances were a little bit more difficult to judge because you just didn't quite know how the ball was going to come off the club in terms of compression with the ground.
Yep.
And sometimes the ground just gives way straight under the ball, and
Yeah.
you lose a lot of distance in that
Yep.
situation. But probably chipping and pitching around the greens was difficult because you're still in Kikuyu, so you want to fly it onto the green. You're difficult to bump and run, but when the clubs then sort of kind of sinking into the ground a little bit, for want of a better explanation, and impact.
Yeah, so they're digging in rather than having sort of that
Yeah,
base to
yeah,
nip the ball off,
yeah.
which you would on a. Well, I would think that maybe Longyard with Cooch fairways may have been a little bit better, but Kaiku
Longyard was
definitely
better.
being a thicker
Yep.
grass, Kaiku does make it difficult when it gets wet.
Yeah, Longyard was definitely better from that point of view. But anyway, that was round one. So after round one, I was feeling pretty good. I obviously would have liked to have scored better, but what was ringing in my ears was the conversations that we'd had before about the fact that stroke play is tough, tournament play is tough.
Yeah.
It's difficult to bring your best stuff. And to be honest with you, shooting an 85 in tournament conditions in a stroke event on a foreign course, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
I'm by no means upset with that number, and especially
Mm.
starting the way I did with a double.
Mm.
That could have got away from me pretty easily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure.
so
For
all
sure.
in all, and I knew it could have been better. A few more putts drop, and then all of a sudden that's a 81, 82, and that's not a bad round of golf. So anyway,
Well, I mean, yeah, you take away the two doubles that, yeah, either on the first and the 18th, then that's only 10 over there in the middle 16 holes, which in
that's right.
championship conditions,
Yeah,
is a reasonable result.
yeah. So I was happy with the grind. I was happy with staying in every shot. Like really going through the process and trying to be focused, be committed to pick a shot and play the shot. And I thought from that point of view, it was a successful day. So I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah,
Pretty
yeah,
happy with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
So then for round two, and I mean you wouldn't have known this teeing off in round two, but the cut ended up being 16 over. 16 over snuck in. So
we
you
thought it
had to
probably
shoot.
would be about that.
Yeah, so you had to
And,
shoot one over round
mm,
two to make the cut.
yep, yep. We were having a chat about it afterwards because when we finished, we stayed at the club on day one. We stayed at the club for an hour or maybe about an hour and a half after we finished the round, and just watched some of the other groups come in and saw the scores start to roll in.
Mm.
And we were sitting around there at the moment. It looked like sort of that middle of the field number was about +8. And we thought, well, if we double that for day two, it's probably going to be at about 16, which it ended up being. And we would need to be playing pretty well on day two to get there.
Yep.
So that wasn't so much in the forefront of thinking, to be honest. The thinking on day two was about trying to do better than day one, and again, doing all the similar things, staying, just all the things you can control, staying in the process, staying focused, staying in the grind, don't eject, play the round, play every shot, all the cliches. That was really the focus, not so much a number. But what was interesting, Andy Walker, as I said, stayed at the club for an hour or so, went back to the Airbnb I was staying at. Shout out to Tom, Airbnb host in Tamworth. His place is pretty out there.
It's party room.
I put that video, the 360 video, on
Yep.
the Facebook page. So pilgrims, if you haven't jumped on the Facebook page and have a look, please do so. And it just felt like such a waste staying there on my own. But I was shattered, to be perfectly honest. I was so tired by the time I got home. I had something to eat. I watched a couple of games of rugby league on the
Yep.
TV. I tried to watch a bit of the Austrian Open. Watched about 2 holes.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty much fell asleep.
Because you had a fairly early tea time at Longyard on Monday, didn't you?
We did. We were first group off at 8 a.m. at Longyard.
Oh, that's not too bad. Like, you normally think first group off is 7 o'clock or earlier.
Yeah.
So 8 o'clock first group. I mean, that's fairly civil.
It was civilized. So look, I got to the course at about 10 past 7 on day 2 because I thought it was a bit fresh. Actually, it was a bit chilly. It's getting into the cooler months here in Australia, and Tamworth's at a little bit of altitude, so it was a little bit chilly. So I thought I'll get to the course, I'll have a good warm up, get in the net, loosen up the lower back and the hip region and all of the bits after a long walk, and a long walk in wet conditions the day before as well.
Yeah.
Which you do feel in the hammies and the glutes as senior golfers. So I got to the course bright and early to do that, and had a chat with the pro who was there, and I asked him to point me in the direction of the warm-up facilities. And he said, oh, yeah. The putting green's there, and the chipping area is just over there.
Okay.
So I said, all right, that's awesome. How about, do you have nets, or do you have a range, or, anything for a swing? He's like, no, we don't. No, we've got the putting area and the chipping area, and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coffee machine not even turned on.
Oh, that's not good.
No.
So did you jump in your car and go to Tamworth Golf Club to hit some balls in the net?
No, I didn't even think of that. But now that you mention it, it's a bloody good idea. Because the course is 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
It would have been, actually probably would have been a really good idea. No, I didn't do that.
See, it's where you need a caddy. Like, caddy comes up with those ideas that go, hey, how about we do this?
Yeah. Because to be honest, like I really did feel like I needed a good loosen. So anyway,
did you at least stretch or something in the locker room?
So I spent a good amount of time stretching and just kind of swinging the driver, not as driver swings, but just swinging to rotate and have something with a little bit of weight to try and get moving, which was good. But it's not the same. Like honestly, I can't understand. I cannot understand golf courses without at least warm up.
Yeah, like, for sure.
Honestly.
Have a long I don't understand that either. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. It's just, it blows me away. It's not the only course that I've played. I mean, Wentworth in Orange is the same, and you go there, and then it is cold in Orange as well. And like, if anywhere, you absolutely need a warm-up facility. And particularly now moving into seniors golf, obviously we feel it more than ever.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse than, well, there probably is something worse, but it's tough when you're jumping on the first tee at the start of winter, and you haven't actually had a chance to feel at least the golf ball come off the club face at any point. That's tough.
Yeah, I know. It really is. It's not ideal. And I think for a course to be awarded a tournament of this stature, the expectation should be there that you have reasonable facilities for golfers to prepare themselves for their round.
Yep.
So, I'm going to say that made all the difference.
Did you give that feedback afterwards to Golf New South Wales?
No, I thought I'd keep it quiet and then just drop it on a publicly released podcast series.
I like it.
Yeah. So, Golf New South Wales, if you're listening, maybe just look at warm-up facilities for the criteria for awarding events to certain locations. But anyway, one thing I will say about the 2 golf courses, and it is interesting playing a tournament where they played it at 2 golf courses. I know it's not the only one that does this. They do it quite regularly. Certainly, even on the PGA Tour, from time to time, you might see like Pebble Beach and Spyglass, for example. But on this occasion, you could not get two more different golf courses than Longyard and Tamworth. And I know I mentioned that earlier, but one being your classic country, big trees style, Kikuyu fairways, etc. The other being a links style course with cooch grasses, completely and utterly different. So that was kind of fun, but obviously calls for sort of different style of golf as well.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of similar to the New South Wales Senior Amateur earlier in the year. I mean,
very much so. Very much so.
Of course, Pacific Dunes and Nelson Bay, they're very different golf courses.
It's actually very similar to that.
So at the end of the day, I mean, Golf New South Wales does have some form in that area.
They enjoy it. I think they quietly enjoy it. So anyhow, we were first group off. We were given the inspirational speech from the starter of get out there, play quick. We nearly finished in the dark yesterday, so the first group out's got a lot of responsibility in setting the pace.
Okay. What about the second group? Because at the end of the day, I mean, if the first group out there like gets around in 3.5 hours, but the second group takes 5.
Well, you've done your job though. It's the lead group. If the first group takes 5, then pretty much everyone else is good.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
What I did think was interesting is we had a 3-ball following us.
All right. Yep.
Which I'm assuming there was a withdrawal overnight. Yep. Curious as to why they didn't put the 3-ball out in front of us and move us to the second group, but they didn't. And so it was our mission to set the pace, which in fairness, we did. We had a really good group. We had, so once again, Ross from Bonnie Doon, who I got to play 36 holes with. He was fantastic company, actually. Really good guy. I look forward to having a round of golf with him, either in Dubbo or Bonnie Doon at some point in the future. We had another guy, Greg from Yamba, up on the north coast of New South Wales, underwater. He hasn't played a lot of golf recently. And a younger guy, well, still in his early 30s, it's Mid-Am, Liam from Penrith down in Sydney. So, took great pains to tell me that he's not a Panthers fan, even though he's from Penrith. So, good on you, Liam. But again, really good guys. And I've got to say, the 2 groups that I got put in on both days could not have asked for better company. All the guys that I played with.
It's always good to have good company.
Fantastic guys. So that was good. So stepped up onto the first tee on day 2 after blocking one big time on the first tee on day 1, and also primacy and recency blocking one on 18 on day 1. Do you want to place any bets where this tee shot went, Andy Walker?
Not right.
Did not go right. I should say that off the first tee, there is out of bounds down the right at Longyard.
And again,
we're on the other side, so that would be a pull for me. Out of bounds down the right, and then on the left, there's another fairway, which is the second hole coming back up the other way. So, and then there's some fairway bunkers kind of down in the middle that separate the 2 fairways.
So if at Tamworth there's out of bounds down the left and you've hit it left on day 1, and then at Longyard there's out of bounds down the right. I mean, you would have thought you'd learned a lesson from Tamworth.
And not hit it towards the out of bounds.
Yeah.
You'd be correct. I smacked it out onto the second fairway.
Excellent. I like it.
Which actually wasn't bad. I had a bit of a line in to hit, which I was still a long way in. So I hit a 5-wood, which actually unfortunately caught one of the only trees on the golf course and dropped down around about 50 meters short of the green, but hit a wedge up, and this time made a 2-putt bogey. So I was feeling pretty good about life at this point because I was one shot better than the day before. And at least I was making better contact with the ball too, which was a good thing. So So that wasn't too bad. And then stepped up onto 2. Now the second hole coming back the other way, you've got at driver distance, sort of around about it probably starts at about 230 meters. There's a water hazard that creeps in from the right hand side and kind of cuts the fairway in half. A little bit like that par 5 at Pacific Dunes.
The 11th.
Yeah, which
Yep.
that little water hazard that sneaks in.
Yep.
You've got a you got a sort of
That you
half
can't
width.
quite see.
You got a half width fairway on the left of the fairway, which I split that half width fairway.
Excellent.
And I was water hazard high with my drive, but straight up the little sliver of land, which was good. And then I channeled you because I was probably a pitching wedge out, but I thought, no, I'll take the 9-iron and I'll just have an easy swing.
Yep.
And stuck it to about 10 feet.
Nice.
And it looked really close from the fairway, but obviously the parallax area, you can't quite tell. And we got up there, it was about 10 feet away and burned the edge. So tap in par. But I was having visions of the day before, of making birdie on 2. But at the end of the day, it was
one
the
over
same
after
result.
2. I mean,
I was one result. Yeah. I was one over. So same result. So then we go to 3. 3 is an interesting one. This is one of the ones where you really want local knowledge, right? So you're standing on the tee, hitting over a lake, but the lake also continues all the way up the left side of the fairway, and over the lake where the fairway is, it kind of drops away, so you can't see. So you're kind of hitting to a blind landing area. Very difficult to know how much of the lake that you should pick off, and try and fly. So Greg in our group bit off more than he could chew, stuck one into the water. So he was hitting 3 off the tee, still bit off more than he could chew, and stuck his second one into the water. And there's no drop zone because the lake starts at the end of the tee box. You straight.
Just reload.
Yep. So then he hit his 3rd tee shot, so his 5th shot over took a more conservative line and got it in play. So that taught the rest of us a couple of lessons on the line that you should take. So anyway, I hit a really good drive, got over the lake, and as I say, it kind of drops away and runs away. What we didn't know from the tee is that on the other side of the fairway that the ball cambers towards, there is another water hazard.
Oh, okay.
If you're too conservative off the tee, and you go a bit too far right, you'll go over the lake and you run into the second water hazard. So you've actually got to be more aggressive if you take driver. And really take an aggressive line to miss that second water hazard. I just missed it. Unfortunately for Liam in our group, who hits the ball a little bit further than me, he found the second water hazard, and he was really philosophical about the situation, given that he didn't know that it was there, and he had brained his driver as well. It was a beautiful shot. Only to be dropping his 3rd. So
that's tough, like, and that's just through, I guess,
not knowing the course.
Ignorance. It's you just don't know the course.
And it's links golf, right? That's what they do to you. So you got to know your lines. We didn't know our lines, but anyway, I got away with it.
Need to play a practice round.
Yeah, need to go there for a week if I was going to play all these practice rounds. But then I was about 85 meters out, hit a 52-degree wedge, hit a good wedge to about 15 feet. Again, it looked closer from the fairway, but just it was a little bit short of the pin. Another burned edge, another tap in par. So anyway, was feeling pretty good at this point though. Like I was playing good golf, hitting good shots, playing good golf. The 4th was a par 5, again with water hazard all the way down the left.
Doesn't mind a water hazard, Jan.
There's a lot of water on this course.
Yeah.
Some of it meant to be there. Some of it
Longyard waters.
Yeah, it is. It really is. Hit a good drive, good 5 wood. Was about 45 meters out, and hit a sand wedge in and just didn't hit it hard enough, and found myself in the face of the front bunker, which was unpleasant. But anyway, couldn't get up and down. So unfortunately, that was a silly bogey from 45 meters out, which was disappointing. But anyway, so we're 2 over after 4. The fifth hit a good drive, and again, club down for the approach, hit an 8-iron, which looked really close. But there was a bit of an undulation in the green, so it was actually about 25 feet short.
Yep.
Which was another easy par. So that was okay. So we're +2 after 5. But I felt like I was about even with the way that I was hitting the ball.
Yep. So are you taking anything out of the just maybe taking a bit off and clubbing sort of down half a club to not actually, to get that right distance rather than trying to hit a full swing on everything?
Yeah, it was my mantra all day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
So long as you can put the ego in your pocket of what club you're hitting.
Yep. And what I do, the approach I take is that if it's my number and it suits an iron, say 7-iron, which I hit about 145 meters. If it's on the number at 145, I'll hit my 7-iron. But anything more than that, if it's like 147 or 148, I won't try and force it. I'll always then peg back to a 6-iron and hit that shot. And I've always done that. For me to stand all over a 7-iron or a 6-iron just to try and hit it a little bit further just rarely works out. I always find that just clubbing down and just gripping down on the club and taking a bit off it works exceptionally well.
No, it was good. And the other thing that I was really looking at, because what they do in these tournaments is they give you the pin sheets.
Yep.
So you get the number of paces on and the number of paces from whichever side. So knowing, you can have coloured flags for front, middle, back at most courses, and that's helpful. But knowing specifically the amount of paces on from the front a flag stick is, well, with my shot scope watch, it's giving me a distance to the front of the green. So I can then add that amount and know exactly what that yardage is. In the same way that you can when you zap the flag stick, that's fine, and do that as well. But what this is telling you is the amount of distance that you've got on the green from the flag to the front and to the back. I found that really useful. So I was able to judge, like if I wanted to go for front flag, and if you zap the flag, you just get that number. So you pick a club for that number. But when you're looking at triangulating all that data and you're going, well, this is the front edge, this is the flag, this is how many paces it is on, probably I want to go long of that if I'm going to err on either side. So I'm at the center of the green rather than come up slightly short and be chipping and putting, and then you're more likely to make bogey. So I thought that was really helpful.
Yep. And that's what I'm getting those distances, having got the Arcos system 2 or 3 years ago now. I'm finding that to be really helpful, because when I'm using Arcos, that gives me the distances to the front and the back, but I've also got my rangefinder to get the distance to the flag, and it's so much more helpful having your distances to the front and to the back of the green, as well as having your distance to the flag.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a few people that I play with on a regular basis that carry only a rangefinder and will zap the flag, and you'll be standing on a tee, say you're on par 3, we'll zap the flag, and then, it'll be we're 154, we're 176, we're 128, whatever the number is. And that's the only number that know that they're thinking about. And I just think that's not enough information.
No, it's not. It's not.
Front, back, where the flag is, how much room you've got in front, how much room you've got behind. That's actually super important. So
it is.
Absolutely was using all of that, which was really helpful. So look, after 5 holes, we were +2, feeling pretty good. On the 6th, which was par 3, not the easiest of par 3s, hit a 5-iron onto the green. Massive big green, undulating green, and it was probably 50 foot from the flag, and unfortunately I 3-putted, which was a little bit disappointing, but that was a bogey. So we're 3 over after 6, still trucking along okay. And then went double, double, double to finish the 9.
That's tough. That's really
Mm,
tough.
mm. It was disappointing.
Yeah, three doubles in a row. That's when you start. Yeah. How was your mental approach at that point? Were you getting down on yourself? Did you sort of
Not,
get
not.
past it pretty quickly,
I
or
was
how were you?
determined. I was determined to let it go, right? And just to kind of explain how this came about. So the 7th hole is a par 5. I'd hit a good drive. Hit a bit of a squirrely hybrid as a second, but I was only trying to go for position to leave a wedge in because the green was heavily bunkered at the front and elevated. So I didn't want to try and mess with that. I wasn't necessarily going to get to the green. So I thought if I take a 5-wood, all I'm going to do is bring those bunkers into place. So I'll try and hit a hybrid up there and leave myself with, say between 60 and 100 meters to hit a wedge
Yep.
in. Didn't hit it particularly well. So I left myself with about 110 into the flag. So it was it's a pretty good pitching wedge number. Say about 114, 115 is my pitching wedge number. So I thought I'll do that because I'm uphill. So I'll hit a full pitching wedge uphill, should be about the right number. Anyway, I flushed it over the green, behind the green's out of bounds. Didn't quite go out of bounds, but was quite close to the fence.
Yep.
Which is then elevated above the green. So it was quite ugly. Anyway, so I then proceeded to try and hit a bump and run and thinned it through the green back over the front of the green in between the two bunkers. And then pitched on, nearly made the putt for bogey, but didn't. So it finished as a double. So there was that. Then we moved to 8. 8 was a long par 3. It was playing about a bit over 190 meters, about 195 meter par 3. And kind of into the breeze. So it was unpleasant. So I took the 5-wood and I thought I'll aim at the right edge and try and cut it back on just to take a bit off it. So I aimed at the right edge and flushed it straight. Yeah. And just next to the right edge of the green's the cart path. It's bounced on the cart path, not once, but twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gone long and into some heavy scrub. So that was a double. So again, felt a little bit Rochambeaued by the golf course. Then 9 is a shortish par 4, hit a good drive, and then hit a wedge into the green, which came up just short. But of course, just short was water hazard.
No.
So I had to drop on the near side of the water hazard, pitch over that onto the green, and couldn't get up and down. So 2 putts. So that's double bogey. So there were bad scores that were worse than the golf that was being played. So I wasn't getting too upset. I was having to just ride it through and go, well, it's golf.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just wasn't working out. So we went to 10. So we went to 10. 10 was okay. I made bogey, but I hit a good drive. My second tried to uphill about 150 out, hit a 6-iron, hit the front edge of the green, sucked back into the bunker. Very, very deep faced bunker. Hit a good bunker shot to about 5 feet, burned the edge, missed the putt, bogey. So that was disappointing. And then where were we there? We went bogey, I think, on the second year we did. So which was annoying. And then the made par at the 12th, which was a par 5. And then 13 was another long par 3, another 5-wood par 3, which again hit a bit right, trying to do the same thing.
Yep.
Cut it in, smoked it straight.
Nice.
Again, dead in a bush. And then made bogey at 14 as well. And at this point, I was well and truly on the train, and I was starting to stare at a very big number here, Andy Walker, and kind of go, I could shoot 90.
Yep.
Was how this was starting to look. But the good thing is rallied, made par on 15, 16, and 17. before a bit of a disappointing bogey on the last to finish, with +6 on the back nine for 42. Yep. So +15 again, 87 all up. But I want to talk to you about 17. 17 was an interesting hole. So what I haven't mentioned is that there was a few spectators out and about on both those rounds.
Okay.
Yeah, which was, I don't think they were out there to watch guys shoot 15 over in 2 rounds.
Surprisingly.
There was some other decent golf being played. So 17's a par 5, kind of goes up the hill. There's water up the right-hand side pretty much the whole way. So I hit a good drive up the center of the fairway, took the 5-wood to, knock it up somewhere near the green to leave myself a pitch and a putt, hopefully make a birdie. Pulled the 5-wood again straight into the water, and it crossed the hazard line. The hazard kind of cuts out. It crossed the hazard line a long way back, so I had to drop about 150 meters out.
So these 5-woods that you're trying to hit, where you sort of started down the right,
this was just a bad swing. This was a bad swing. This was not unlucky at all. This was a horrible swing. It was off the heel. It was bad. It deserved to go in the water. Anyway, so I had to drop one. I dropped one about a bit over 150 out, uphill to the green. Blind shot from where I was to the green. Playing partners were up near the green at this point because I was back dropping and trying to figure out exactly the point of entry and all that sort of malarkey. So anyway, up the hill, hit a 6-iron, and I flushed it. And it was a tight little draw at the flag. Looked amazing.
Yeah.
I saw it bounce, and I didn't see anything else after that. And then I saw some heard some shouting from playing partners up at the green with a bit of like, hands on heads kind of gear.
Yeah.
Anyway, walked up there, and then there was a couple of spectators behind the green sitting on the hill watching as I walked up, and my ball was literally 2 inches behind the hole. And it had apparently done a 180 and lipped out.
Oh, no.
At the back of the hole.
Yeah, wow.
It was an all-time, like it was an all-world par, but it would have been a hell of a birdie.
Yeah.
Dunk one from 150. Anyway, it wasn't to be, but it was a nice little story at the end of the round, so it was good fun. Nice.
So highlights, lowlights, what did you take out of the experience?
Yeah, positives. I was really happy with my emotional balance during the 2 rounds. Stayed in it, never ejected, never got frustrated, was in the grind when it was necessary and hung in the round. I think that was a maturity level in my game that was not there a year ago, without a doubt. So that's good. Thank you, John Sherman. Driver was another positive. Even though it was a bit wobbly at the start of both rounds, I feel like I've got enough understanding of my driver swing now to get it back on track when it's not, a day where it's just easy. So that was really good.
A bit of Scotty Scheffler in that.
Maybe. I don't know that I'd describe my driver game as quite the same as Scotty Scheffler, but anyway, thanks. The other one probably I'd say is, even though the stats don't necessarily back it up, but my ball striking with my irons is so much better than what it's been. And I think a lot of that is going to that sort of, off-pace swing, not hitting everything full out, but, clubbing up and, kind of easing it in a little bit more and therefore getting better contact. So that was definitely a positive. Yeah, they're probably the things that stand out from that point of view.
Yep. And what you think you've got to work on? I mean, having seen your stats, putting's probably up there with, and more so the framework and the green reading and maybe a bit of speed control.
I'm actually struggling a little bit on how to process the putting side of it at the moment, because it eroded a lot of confidence that I'd been working up to before this tournament. from the putting side.
Because that sort of flipped because the putting was the strongest part of your game. Certainly from
Statistically,
a
yes.
from a strokes gained perspective, it
Yeah.
wasn't that long ago that we were discussing how good your putting was.
Yeah. But also bear in mind, it wasn't that long before that we were also discussing how bad my putting was. So it hadn't got to the point of dependability yet, even though there had been improvement.
Yeah.
And that was improvement on greens I knew. Like, and I think I really got found out on greens that I am not familiar with. I really think that was part of it. It's definitely a focus. I also don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater though and get too concerned and hit the panic button. I think there's been a lot of development there. I think I've got to trust the process and just spend the time getting to know the tour read process and, maybe get Ralph Bauer on the show, hear from him. Might have to reach out to him. He can tell us all about it.
That'd be nice.
So there's that. I think the other things is managing, like just being used to accepting and managing the unfamiliar feels of tournament play. I say that rather than nerves, because it's not just nerves. It's just everything is weird and different.
And we've discussed this a number of times. Playing in a championship event, and certainly when it comes to a state event and New South Wales event and an Australian event will go to the next level again. When you're playing in that type of event, it's different. It is so different to playing, in a local Saturday comp or midweek comp at your local club. It's even a club championship, I don't think can really compare to going to an unfamiliar golf course. Even if you've played it before and you know it relatively well, there's still going to be areas that you're not familiar with, and trying to put a score together in championship conditions. It's very different. It's a very, very different engagement, for your golf game.
It is. We actually had this conversation at the end of the round on day two. We sat down, we had a beer, and had a chat about it with Greg and Ross that I'd played with. Ross on 2 days and Greg on day two. May surprise you to know, Andy Walker, that I got the microphones out at this point and recorded this.
Oh, nice. Excellent.
It does go for a couple of minutes, so strap yourself in, but it actually talks about exactly those points that you're talking about. So,
would like to hear.
So you can hear from not just me, but two of the guys that we played the round with as well. So we might cut to that now if you like and tune in.
Let's do it.
Pilgrims, we finished the round two. Got to be honest, it looks like we won't be making the cut for the final round, but I am joined by two of the boys that were in the group today. One of whom I had the joy of playing both days with, Ross Johnson, and we got Greg Little as well. So, Roscoe, you managed to hang around for 2 days with me.
Yeah.
Any thoughts for the weekend?
Yeah, well, I think that was an achievement in itself. The company was superb both days. Can't complain about that. It was a lot of fun out there. It was just a shame the golf didn't live up to the billing it could have.
No. Any thoughts on putting for the weekend?
Yeah, putting.
How many putts did you see me make?
Yeah, your putting was tough to watch at times. You left a lot on the lip. I don't know if you're going to do your stats, but I'd hazard a guess that it could be upwards of 36 plus both days.
Yeah, putting not my strength. But Greg, you went all right today.
I went all right, apart from a couple of holes where there's a little bit of water. So 3 balls in the water, sort of a 9 and a 7 on easy par 4s.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
No. 9s on par 4s is not really what you're after, is it?
Especially then 3 putting it after 2 in the water.
Or 8. 8s on the scorecard aren't great either.
No.
I managed to have a couple of those today, which
not when you're playing off single figures.
No. And Ross, any balls out of bounds for the weekend for you?
Yeah, I think there was 4 in total.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
2 yesterday in Tamworth GC. 1 which was kindly returned to me by a pedestrian. walking their dog. So
Yeah.
that was real bottom of the barrel stuff. So
Yeah.
it was nice to get the ball
You
back.
didn't hit the dog, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I hit another one on the road in Tamworth, and I don't know. I think that one's half the way to Armadale. So yeah,
There's one in the backyard up
there,
here.
there was
saw that
also one in the backyard.
Yeah.
as well. So
Yeah.
I donated a couple.
Yeah.
Very good. Anyway, boys, it was a lot of fun. Good company. I enjoyed the couple of days out.
Interesting playing in an official
Well,
tournament.
it's always fun. It adds something else to the
It does.
to the whole feeling. I thought yesterday there was a few nerves on the first tee, and
Definitely.
consequently blocked it a mile left of the fairway. But no, it's good. It's good fun. It's definitely a different style of golf to playing your club golf on a weekly
Oh,
basis.
for sure,
That's for sure.
I think it gets you. It kind of gets you those feelings again of when you kind of first played your first Stableford competition or your first, maybe club champ or something like that. You kind of get that sort of feeling.
Yeah.
You got to get the one out of the way.
Yeah.
And potentially play really bad, which we did.
Yeah.
And then it'll be easier next time.
I mean, to be honest with you, part of that whole thing for me is actually just getting experience playing in these kind of tournaments, because I've never really done it before the last couple of years, and there's no substitute for just feeling those feelings. And no, like, I don't know, like I felt tight on the first few holes yesterday.
Yeah.
You couldn't access your proper swing, and then you just got to find a way to try and grind it out if possible. But yeah, it was fun. It was good
fun.
week. It was good
But I
week.
think we all had the same feelings on those first few
Yeah.
holes, especially yesterday.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you come in with a bit of, as sort of higher single digit handicappers, come in with a certain degree of imposter syndrome, knowing that there's guys at +5 in the field and some of that.
And we're nearly as good as them.
Yeah. So you're not expecting to,
No, we're not.
you're not expecting to challenge, but you
No.
obviously just want to not embarrass yourself.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's
a big point.
it's hard to let yourself play good golf when you
Mm.
kind of have that sort of mentality though as well at the same time.
Yes.
So which kind of is half the battle. I'd say it's 70% mental out there more than actual technique and
Well, I think it is.
Yeah,
It is.
Definitely is.
just staying in the fight the whole
But
time.
we know we can hit the shot most
Yeah.
of the time.
Exactly.
But then you don't.
Exactly.
But anyway, it's a lot of fun, boys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
And well done.
So there you go, Andy Walker. That was
4 out of bounds.
Roscoe.
That's a lot.
He's right though. He did get one ball handed back to him by a pedestrian at one point in Tamworth. It was spectacular.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a good ball. Putted well, but off the tee, he couldn't get off the tee. We would have been a great scramble team.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
If we played a 2-ball scramble, we would have been on fire because I was hitting the ball off the tee pretty well and he was putting well. So anyway. But it was interesting just listening to them and having that conversation about how we were all feeling the same stuff throughout the whole tournament. Kind of going through the same emotional reaction to everything that's going on. So it's more than nerves. It's not just nerves. It's just processing fish out of water scenario that you can only deal with through experience and doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good lesson that everyone is feeling the same thing. There's going to be guys out there that handle it better than each other, that will show it differently to others. But at the end of the day, everyone's feeling exactly the same thing. They're all feeling the pressure. They're all going to be nervous. It's just how each individual deals with it. And that's what you've got to take into those events. You've got to go, well, yes, this is how I'm feeling, but everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's going to be feeling the same thing.
There's one other lesson that I took out of the weekend. Well, it's not really a weekend. It was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, out of the experience. And it is to always, whenever possible, have a travel buddy, even if it's not another player, but it's someone to travel with.
Yeah, right.
And it's because I have never done this before, and I didn't really think about it in the lead up, but I went on my own. Obviously you had your injury issues. I went on my own, rented an Airbnb, which was great, loved it. But played the round, went back to the house, and there's just a lot of thinking time.
Yep.
Whereas at least if there's another person that you're traveling with, you might go out for dinner and you might talk about other stuff that's not just stewing over the shots that you hit that you wish you didn't, and all of those things. And it's all well and good to ring the family and have a chat, but it's not the same as actually making a bit more of a getaway out of the experience than just going playing golf and going back to your room.
Yeah. And I mean, we had that in the country championships last year, and that's halfway. And I think both of us, after the first round, there were things that we weren't overly happy with, and yet we got back to the Airbnb and went out and had some dinner and had a bit of a chat and a laugh, and then everything's all right again.
Yeah. So I didn't have that, and I think looking back on it, I'm not saying it makes any difference to the result in any way, shape, or form, but it's just an element to the experience that is a little bit lacking. So I think if I had my time over again, I would have tried to find someone to come along, even if they weren't going to play, to either be on the bag or just do something else during the day and go out for dinner with, or talk about something that's not that tournament that night. Do something else. I think that's just an interesting one for mine. But look, overall, we've talked a lot about some of the negatives, and obviously it wasn't the golf I wanted to play, but I came into the tournament ranked 165th on handicap, and I came 144th.
Okay.
So irrespective of particular scores, perspective is important. And I think that when I put it on that, and that's gross scores, that's not on handicap, that's not net. On net, I think I came 107th or something on those lines.
Yeah.
So it was, I did better than my handicap would have suggested I should have.
And do you feel as though you played better than the 215 overs? Do you feel as though your golf game is in a better position than say what your scores are suggesting at the moment? Is that a fair statement?
100%. Absolutely. Yep, I do. I think there's no question about that. Absolutely do.
Yep. Of course, I've and only today I had to drive down to Sydney, and I was, and this probably maybe we can talk about this next week or in the coming weeks. I listened to, or I've listened to about half the audio book of James Clear, Atomic Habits. And he talks about it in the phrase he's coined is the plateau of latent potential. And it's sort of that glass ceiling, glass floor, whichever way you want to look at it, in that you're doing a lot of the work, but you're not quite seeing the results. And that sort of seems to be sort of where you're at the moment. Whereas you've reached this plateau, you feel as though you're a better golfer, but the results aren't quite there. And that's sort of the time where it can be really frustrating, and you can get a bit, maybe a little bit sort of downhearted and maybe go, well, what's the point? But that's the time that you need to keep pushing through and burst through that level and that plateau, and keep going and become a better golfer at the end of it.
It is 100% where it's at.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that could be a topic for maybe next week or the week after, just how to burst through that, or not so much burst through it, but how to just how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's relevant. Definitely something that I'd like to dive into. But I know, look, we're at 1 hour and 20. We're probably pushing it for the Pilgrims at the moment, so we'll definitely carry that one over. But look, bottom line, awesome weekend. Like, great experience once again, right up there with the country championships. I think it would have probably been better than the country championships if we'd been there together. And a lot of the fun of that tournament was the fact that they were both there, and
Yep.
the whole experience of everything, which was really
Mm.
cool.
Mm.
I think this would have been better than that. I feel like I'm a better golfer than I was then.
Yep.
Even though the scores weren't as good for a variety of reasons. And that's an interesting one that you've raised that we'll talk about in future episodes. But there's a lot to build on. Without a doubt, there's a lot to build on. So, and just good experience to go through that once again and feel those feelings once again, and sort of pull that apart and be better next time.
Good, yeah,
or be better prepared
and I'm
at least next time.
what's good and what I'm really happy about is that you get how I felt about golf and championship golf for the last 30 odd years.
For sure.
It's I've always looked forward to it. I've always tried to push myself further in that direction, because it's different. It is very different to playing club golf, and I love it, and I'm glad that you've gone down that path and fallen in love, I guess, with that championship golf events and playing in championship golf events.
It's the best, and it's it's not a surprise. It's very similar to rocking up on big game days.
Yeah.
I talked about it in the recording at the beginning. You could feel the nervous tension in the air. What was really funny is that when I arrived at the course, and I was teeing off at 10 and groups have been going off since 8. So obviously it was on and people were turning up, going through their processes and warming up and things. It was so quiet because no one was talking to each other.
Yep.
Everyone was just doing their stuff, warming up, but you could feel the anxiety in the air. Like an electricity level in the air.
Yeah.
That was cool.
You can smell the denker rub.
Kind of. But just it wasn't just a rock up on a Saturday. How you going, mate? Yeah, I had a few beers last night and see what happens today. People turned up because they were serious about wanting to turn up to do well.
Yep.
And it's a completely different feeling.
Yeah. Yep.
So
100%.
That is absolutely addictive, no doubt about it.
Oh, good. Onwards and upwards. That's what I say.
Yep. And what else do you say, Andy Walker?
Rock out, Pilgrims.
Thanks for listening to us today. We love hearing from our pilgrims, so please reach out to us through any of the links in the show notes. We know golf is hard, so we hope we can help you shoot better scores and inspire you to keep trying. Rock on, pilgrims. Done.